Hi everyone, Tom Slivick, and we're talking about rural dwellings and possibilities of relaxing some of the code here in rural counties such as Amador County. John Plasse, Supervisor, you were in a committee with Aaron Bussatori. Aaron's the Community Development Director, formerly known as Public Works Director, and also with Supervisor Brian Oneto. And when you spoke, you talked about, this was a year-long committee, at least. You can tell us a little bit about the committee process and also some of the counties, or just expand.
All right. Well, we actually were introduced to this idea by a packet that Supervisor Forster brought back from an RCRC, Regional Council of Rural Counties meeting. And within that packet, it discussed some board members of RCRC discussing the LDRD ordinance and how it was working in their counties and so forth. And that's when we became aware that it even existed. That's when we became aware that it has been on the California code books for 20 plus years. And it's also when we became aware that numerous counties throughout the state have adopted this ordinance. And so we asked our Community Development Director, Aaron Bussatori, to contact those counties and talk to their public works departments and their building departments and ascertain, how is it working for you? What are some of the trip-up points that we need to be concerned with?
Okay, so this isn't necessarily just a way to sidestep building codes for today.
No, it is not.
Or, oh, we don't like the way the government is. Let's go back to an older time or something like that. A better way to do things. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to.
The purpose is to help owner builders in rural areas where sometimes the extension of services are prohibitive as far as a cost standpoint. Some of the engineering requirements in modern day building permits become so costly that it's almost a detriment to building. We're trying to help things be easier to do what many of us did and many of our families have done for years, and that's build your own house on a piece of property that you own, an owner-built dwelling, but get away from some of the over-regulatory environment involved in that. And one of the ancillary benefits, and this topic came up at the meeting quite a bit, was an ancillary benefit is that we know that there's buildings out there in the county that have been built maybe without permits, maybe without the proper code adherence, without final building inspections on them. And by adopting this LDRD standard that allows people to build to an earlier building code, an earlier code standard, it very well might have the effect of, for those people that did that built without a permit, but now want to get into compliance, they can come into compliance by contacting the county, saying, I built this home for myself, it qualifies as a limited density rural dwelling, and I'd like to get a final inspection and get on the tax rolls and all those types of things. That I don't know how prevalent that problem is in the county. Some supervisors say they know of a lot of them. I don't know of a lot of them, but I'm sure they exist out there, and there's no reason why we shouldn't try to have a way to help those people come into compliance as well.
Okay, it would seem to me that if those people had built a room on or something like that, then certainly that would have required a permit that, when inspected, would have changed the Prop 13 value. It would seem to me
a room addition won't change the Prop 13 value, but it does receive a supplemental assessment.
Okay.
And so the assessor's office sends out a supplemental assessment, and there's a supplemental property tax equating to the added value that added room.
Okay, this brings me to a question too. Was our Supervisor Assessor Jim Rooney, was he talked to at all about any of this and how that might affect his office?
No, we really didn't discuss it with Jim, to be honest with you.
I think it might be a good place, seeing how a lot of taxing questions seem to be brought up at that. So
that was one of the concerns of some of the supervisors, and yet this in no way impedes your ability to get an assessment and the resulting taxation on the property by adopting this ordinance. It does not do that at all. If anything, it helps facilitate getting more properly built, permitted buildings built and on the tax rolls.
Right, because
out there.
basically, it sounds to me like, from talking to you now, that this is more for, not necessarily more for, but the main thrust of the idea is for new homes being built.
And the ordinance at the state level is really not meant to be, all new homes. It was, again, to be in rural areas where the services are limited and the, what's the word I was looking for? The compliance issues can be addressed better with the adoption of this ordinance. And for instance, the state code mentioned that this ordinance is applicable in situations like seasonal dwellings, maybe in the upcountry cabins, or they talked about hunting cabins and vacation cottages and detached bedrooms at residences that have the other health and safety bathrooms and so
How about
forth.
like an outbuilding on property then that would be larger than, I guess, the 8 by 10 or
Right.
whatever size that's limited before a permit is.
Right, currently it's limited to 120 square feet, an outbuilding, like a garage or something like that, but this could be expanded beyond that 120 square feet. Still has to get a permit, still has to be inspected, just doesn't have to jump through as many hoops to get from point A to point B as our current system is set up.
Now, when you are building, if, say, this is adopted or something like that, and you are doing a code, the buildings will be inspected.
Yes,
The
they
work
will.
will be inspected and be expected to be held up to that code.
To that earlier adopted code, right. And in some instances, if the building is, say the building is a hunting cabin and there's no provisions for having electricity brought into there, and the building is not expected to be electrified, and there's no other areas where an inspection inside the wall would be necessary in the course of inspections, you could literally have one inspection on a structure like that. When you've provided your plans, you've shown how you're going to build it, you go ahead and build it and call for a final inspection, and as long as it's built to the plans that you put before the building department when you got your permit, it's good to go. And the other thing is that in protections for somebody that might buy one of these dwellings that was built under this code, we've required that there be a title document affixed and recorded on the property saying that this dwelling, this outbuilding, was built to the LDRD standards, and it's essentially a notice to a future buyer that they may want to look into what that means and if they have any problem with it or not.
Did your committee think that this might help people build more homes and therefore maybe not necessarily bring more tax dollars, but basically just look at it that it would be more comfortable or provide an environment where building could happen more easily?
Yeah, we did look at it from that standpoint, not necessarily from, hey, this is an opportunity to get more taxes for the county. I don't.
Right, that's what I mean.
I don't tend to look at things that way.
I look at it from the private property aspect and being able to build something and do that and do it as simply as possible, but at the same time have it done right to where it is safe.
Right. And we frequently, as supervisors, have heard from the building community out there that we need to, reduce fees or relax regulations or do things that help enable people to build a home on a piece of property that they have already. And that those fee structures and the regulatory structure is an impingement for people being able to do that. Well, we've heard that loud and clear. We've looked at the possible reduction of some of the fees in the county, and that suggestion or recommendation is still in the works. But this is another way to lower the cost of constructing an owner-built dwelling through a lesser onerous inspection process and regulatory environment.
Okay, now it seems to me we've just got a minute left or so that this is left to where Aaron Brusatori is going to be coming back with more information from the other counties. It sounded like that's what the other board members who weren't on the committee would like to have. Is that what your understanding as well?
I think that, and I think the other thing that came to play is we had a real full agenda on Tuesday with some very lengthy items and a lot of reading that was required. And this was unfortunately in that agenda and sort of a lot to bite off, if you will, for some of the supervisors that have not been on the subcommittee and become familiar with it over time, like myself and Supervisor Oneto have. So I think it gives them a chance to read through it a little more, understand the details, bring comments in from those other counties throughout the state that have adopted this ordinance, and I think we've got an opportunity to do something good for the community here.
Okay, when do you think the board is going to be looking at this again? Do you remember? Was it?
I don't remember if it was going to be done by our next meeting. I don't think so, with all the holidays coming into play and that. I think we scheduled it for maybe the first meeting in December.
We'll find out, do it as a news story, or certainly we'll know that. If you do want to watch that meeting, it is on TSPN, it is on YouTube, and is TSPN's YouTube channel, as well as our website, and it will be up to date. So, thank you, Supervisor Plasse,
Thank you, Tom.
coming down, and
My pleasure.
I think it's very interesting. So stay with us. There's more to come on TSPN.
You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.